Coming up on today's show, a $2 billion investment for Faraday Future. The Tesla Roadster test driver has his say, and Hyundai are using Second Life EV batteries for energy storage. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good ruddy evening, wherever you're listening around the world. Hello and welcome to the Wednesday, the 27th of June edition of EV News Daily. It's Martyn Lee here with the news you need to know about electric cars and the move towards sustainable transport. Three little things to get going with today. Number one, a follow-up. The Twitter account of the Tesla employee who we talked about on yesterday's show. And if you haven't heard it, by the way, it's available to download. You can download the podcast, all the usual podcast places, or the audio on YouTube. That Twitter account, I can't find it today. I wonder if it's been totally deleted. As of yesterday, it was made private because he was... Well, if you haven't heard the show, you can go and listen to it. But he was tweeting good news about Tesla production rates. That's Elon's job, my friend. Not you. No, you work at Gigafactory. You got a great job. You work at Tesla. Tweeting about hitting certain weekly rates. Not your job, my friend. That Twitter account, I think, is now completely deleted. Well, I can't find it. Let me know if you can. Follow-up number two from something we talked about recently as well. Audi is scrapping its plans to launch its E-Tron Quattro crossover at the end of August. Meant to be in Brussels, August 30th. The launch plan has been postponed, they say, to another date, a time in the future. It's going to be North America now, not Europe. When that is, they're not saying. Certain people today putting two and two together and getting five online saying, oh my goodness, it means that the Audi e-tron is postponed, it's not going to happen. I don't see anything in their announcement, by the way, that says the production has been affected by, what should we call them diplomatically? Let's call them certain events. They say they're called organisational issues. Of course, a week ago, their chief exec, Rupert Stadler, had a visit from the law. Yeah, organisational issues. That's all being dealt with right now. We won't go into it, but that's why the Audi e-tron Quattro launch ain't going to happen when it should have done. Oh, and the third bit of business to get to, and actually it should be a regular segment that we call Elon Tweets. Elon Musk was talking about the Tesla truck, not the semi-truck, but the pickup truck on Twitter yesterday, and saying, actually polling users, doing a bit of a Twitter survey, what features should it have? He did say this: the pickup truck's going to have dual motor, all-wheel drive with crazy torque and a suspension that dynamically adjusts for load. Those will be standard, not even options. And that makes sense. If you're going to make a Tesla pickup truck, you've got to beat the likes of GM, and you can't do that by being just as good as a Ford F-150. You have to do it by just blowing out of the water. So, massive torque, each wheel operating independently, great suspension, air suspension, I would presume from that tweet. You can raise it and lower it. Going to be an amazing pickup. Ah, man. Make the Model 3 first. I mean, he knows what he's doing. I'm not questioning him, but make the Model 3 first. He's talking about the pickup. There's the Model Y to come before then. And he also was asking about people about the nuances. I replied to that, by the way. What do you think of this? The reply I sent to Elon Musk was, what about in the back of the pickup truck, in the bed, having power outlets for domestic tools and appliances, like 120 volts or 240 volt, as we've got here in the UK? Proper outlets. So if you are a workwoman, you are heading out into the middle of nowhere to, I don't know, build a shack, right? Don't take a gas generator with you. Drive your Tesla pickup and plug your tools into it. It's got a big old battery. By then, because it's like 2-3 years away, right? Maybe more. It's going to have at least 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. Maybe less, maybe more, right? Certainly very energy dense batteries by then, with the Panasonic developments they're doing. So you can plug your tools in. That'd be amazing. What about if you go camping? You go away for a camping weekend. How about you go to the beach? You want some leisure activities? Wouldn't it be cool just to plug things into your car? Not into the cigarette lighter, not with an inverter. I'm talking just you plug something straight in to your car. It'd be so cool. Real utility vehicle. Is that a good idea or is that a bit of a rubbish idea? Let me know in the comments section. So those are the first 3 bit of business we got to get to on today's show. Right, not too many stories today, but I've purposely only chosen a couple of stories to talk about, but I want to go really deep into them. Right, and the first one is about Faraday Future. Now, TechCrunch call them the Beleaguered EV firm, Faraday Future, and today was a rare moment of cheer for the floundering EV maker. A little harsh, some might say harsh but fair. We've been talking about Faraday Future since they were founded in 2014, and so far only released what I would generously call beta cars or prototype cars, that being the FF91. The car they said would be on the market this year, 2018. You could buy your FF91. Not going to happen. Even when we first saw the car early last year, it's CES in 2017, and they said it was going to be available this year. That date seemed like a flight of fancy. No one really believed it. And although they're based in California, definitely Chinese money propping them up. But we wish them well. All future EV makers, we wish them well. Perhaps, though, the 13 1.3 models they once promised us are maybe a little bit optimistic at this stage of the game. Well, TechCrunch do say that Evergrande Health. Now, Evergrande Health are a division of Hong Kong-listed Evergrande, and it's taken a 45% stake in Faraday Future in a deal worth $2 billion US. Kind of in a couple of stages, actually. First of all, Evergrande Health has taken the investment commitments previously held and agreed last November by Season Smart. They invested $800 million US. According to filings. Now, Evergrande Health have taken over that commitment to a tune of $860 million US. Now, Faraday Future told us in a statement, Faraday Future will continue to use the committed funds to accomplish our top priority, finalising the development and delivering the first production model, the FF91, to both US and China markets. The investment will also support Faraday Future to expand its product pipeline, develop cutting-edge technologies, and grow the business rapidly in a global marketplace, including our manufacturing facilities in Hanford, California, and Guangzhou, I think that is, in the Guangdong Province in China. Well, Electrek reminds us of the specs. Always kind of them to be on the ball with everything at Electrek. They remind us that it's got a 130 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Faraday Future claims the FF91 will have 1,050 horsepower. They say it's the most of any electric car, but actually it does fall short of things like the Rimac Concept 1 and the C_2, which is on the way, and some other upcoming EVs as well. Faraday Future saying 378 miles was the target for EPA range. And of course, with all these things, they haven't actually yet had to prove it. So they can kind of say what they want. According to GearBrain, it's unknown how far the FF91 is from mass production, as Faraday Future scrapped its plans for a $1 billion Las Vegas factory last August, instead opting to take over a 55-year-old former Pirelli tyre factory in LA. Well, Faraday Future told us on the 7th of June, earlier this year, so about 6 weeks ago now, they'd only just received a permit to begin construction of their new facility. Despite the significant setbacks, lawsuits over missed payments and contractors, says GearBrain, and an employee exodus, by the way, $2 billion is a huge chunk of cash and should see the FF91 make it at least into production in some form. Well, moving on to, by the time they get that on the road, will be its main competitor, that being the smaller but equally as highly spec'd Tesla Roadster. And the Tesla Roadster test driver says it is fast. Holy moly, it's fast. Well, Emile Boré is the test driver that you go to for performance test driving. He's raced professionally. He's worked for Audi in the past. And most recently, test driver for Tesla, thanks to the chief designer Franz von Holsthausen bringing him into the company. Now, we are still in the same time period. The 48 hours since one of their employees leaked information from the Gigafactory. Positive news, but still a leak. So he's not going to say too much on YouTube about the Roadster, but he did say on the YouTube channel of VinWiki this, and I quote, "I know there is skepticism about the figures that were quoted that day." And he's talking about launch day, right? 0 to 60 miles an hour. the quarter mile. I think I can say, without getting in trouble, that those are actual figures. Those are not theoretical. Those are not calculations. We've done those numbers. I probably shouldn't say... Oh, what's he going to say now? I probably shouldn't say, but those numbers are actually conservative. It's going to be a proper weapon, end quote. So there you go. He doesn't spill the beans too much, but what he does say, in fact, what he says is what Elon has said about the semi-truck. The numbers we've said are conservative. Well, a quick stat check on the new Roadster. A 200 kilowatt-hour battery pack, 600 plus miles on the range on one charge. 3 motors, 0 to 62 miles an hour, less than 2 seconds. I think we're talking 1.9. These days, everyone wants the 0 to 100 mile an hour speed as well, and that is 4.2 seconds. 0 to 100 mile an hour. Insane! And that is without the optional rocket boosters. All right, let's move on to some battery stuff. And Hyundai are the latest car maker to explore uses for second life EV batteries for storage. Stephen Edelstein over at The Drive makes a good point about renewables and reminding us that actually you need storage on renewables to really make them equal to fossil fuel plants, those peaker plants that can spin up in a few seconds. If you want to make renewables always on, you've got to store that energy. And he says Hyundai has already constructed a 1 megawatt hour test array using old Ioniq Electrek and Kia Soul EV batteries. I can't believe there's old ones around. Well, going forward, it plans to provide batteries to the firm that's going to install them. It'll market them to electric utilities and other companies as part of a complete energy storage system. He says Hyundai expects 29 gigawatt hours of used EV batteries to be available by 2025 compared to the 10 gigawatt hours of batteries currently available for the energy storage market. Well, that prediction's based on an assumption of expanded EV sales. No reason they won't expand in that time frame, though. Tesla already pioneering the model of selling both EVs and batteries for energy storage. Of course, Tesla adding on solar recently to that as well. BMW, Daimler, Nissan also discussing energy storage battery packs. Not on the same scale as Tesla, though. There's a link to the Drive article in the show notes. Please click on it. Please find out more if you want to read more from that. Well, let's talk about trucks a little bit then. If you haven't heard it, by the way, last Saturday on the podcast was a very special interview with a UK company that are making range extended trucks, and I talked to the sales and marketing director for that company called Teva Motors, and fascinating interview. Haven't downloaded last Saturday's, by the way. Go and have a look. It's titled Saturday Special on your podcast feed. Well, Freightliner sells more heavy-duty diesel trucks in North America than any other brand. The division of Daimler, the German company that also owns Merck, controls about 40% of the real heavy-duty truck market on the US side of the Atlantic, reports Jerry Hirsch for Trucks.com. Earlier this month, Roger Nielsen, he's the chief exec of Daimler Trucks North America, unveiled the EV vision for their semi-tractor. Prototypes of the truck are being tested in Portland, Oregon later this year. So let's have a look at some of the quotes that he said. It was a long interview, but I've picked out only the very best bits for you that I think will start a discussion. Firstly, Roger Nielsen told Trucks.com this, and I quote, "When we make announcements, we're always targeting what the customer could use, what the customer could need. Others in the startup industry are trying to attract investors or money. And that's a different message if you're trying to attract investment versus customers. We're in the business of attracting customers. So our message is a little bit different. But for sure, all the startups are interesting to watch, of course. We've talked to them. Customers will get operating cost parity before purchase price parity. A lot of things go in with that equation. The customer's expecting a truck to last 1 million miles, with the last 500,000 being second-hand customers. There's a lot to be done there, end quote. Let's pick that apart a little bit. He's talking about startups making bold claims for investments. Is he having a pop at Tesla or somebody else? Maybe he's aiming his sights at somebody else. Maybe he's aiming it at Tesla. They don't seem so much of a startup anymore. We'll see. But he does say that actually the trucks they make need to do 1 million miles. The first 500,000, the first customer, the fleet operator, that's what their cost is worked out on. The second 500,000 miles is used customers and on the used market. And I wonder if the people who are getting really excited about the Tesla semi-truck have truly thought about the Tesla semis doing 1 million miles. I mean, like, I love every time we see a really great story from someone like Tesloop, right, in California, talking about how their cars, the shuttles they use for Tesloop, are doing 200, 300,000 miles on the Model X, right? But the semi, the market they're going into, it's 1 million miles they have to do. There's no reason to say they won't do that, because EVs, electric trucks, are so much more simple than combustion engines. So maybe it'll do 2 million. I don't know. But I'm just saying, a lot of people leave that out of the equation, that Tesla are going to be selling trucks that are going to have to do a lot more miles than their cars are expected to do. Okay, let's go back to what we were talking about here with the head of Daimler, Roger Nielsen. He also said this on the topic of short hauling. I quote, "The bakery type deliveries, those that start at 4 a.m. and go all the way through the day. Maybe those trucks come back at midday for a charge. Maybe they're charging somewhere along the way. The Freightliner EM2, it's an electric medium-duty truck. That would be a perfect application for a bakery with a 60-minute rest stop and a charge. So the driver wants lunch, you get 200 miles of range, and off you go again." So it's interesting, in the last couple of days, actually, since Saturday to today, a couple of stories about trucks, freights, urban deliveries. We get really excited about electric cars. I do. It's what I get most excited about, because you see a new model, you kind of fantasize about it, you put it on your wish list. How would I spec this car? And one of the things to remember is if it's about electrifying miles driven, not vehicles bought, when you start electrifying freight, you really start racking up some electric miles, because most personal cars don't do anything for about 95% of the time. Right, into the community section of the podcast right now. Thank you so much for your feedback. Hi to Phil, who's been a former guest on this show last Friday, Phil Roberts. And he was reporting in live from Germany, actually, last Friday. He was talking about his brand new Nissan Leaf, 40 kilowatt hour on today, and he was saying that it's not news that he wanted to pass on, but he wanted to tell you that his new Leaf 40 charging isn't doing very well in the current temperatures. Okay, background, here in the UK, heatwave right now. Some parts of the country 25, some parts 28, some parts nearly 30 degrees C. That's a real outlier for this country. Summertime can be early 20s, can be late 30s, but to get a week of really hot temperatures in June, hotter than the south of Spain, north of Africa, Tunisia was 22 degrees today, London was 25. So it's hot in the for us, it's hot in the UK, 25 degrees C, 30 degrees C. And he says that his Nissan Leaf today, on the first charge of the day, kicked off at 27 kilowatts and only got from 20 to 40% state of charge before he had to leave. The second charge, from 10%, only kicked off at 22 kilowatts and was going down. Not very happy. I'm sorry to hear that, Phil. It's a gorgeous car, and Phil's done what I would do with my cars, which is I'm kind of old-fashioned. I save up for stuff and buy it. Everyone online, there's people replying to Phil saying, "Oh, you should have used finance, PCP, lease. You know, at the end of the 3 years, you can give it back." And then the way I see it, you never hear of a lease company going bust. Therefore, they're making money off of you, and I hate people making money off of me. So if it means that I have to be patient to buy the car that I really want, I just wait a little bit longer and save up. I know that that's not practical in some cases, and I'm not by any means saying that I'm flush with money. I'm certainly not. Just kind of like old-fashioned values from the parents. It's the way that I was brought up. So I just don't do finance, right? But I know that nearly everybody does, so it's not a criticism. But Phil's the same. He bought his car with cash, and it's not really performing the way he wanted to. That stings. That really hurts. I'm so sorry, Phil. Hi to Paul, who calls himself Paul V1, who left us a little comment. Great coverage of EV news from around the world. Perfect positive start to the day, says Paul. Thank you so much. And hi to Jim Bob Store. Hi to the guys as well on the Data Hopper forum. And I never say hello to you enough because you repost every single podcast we make on YouTube. datahopper.co.uk. Thank you so much to the guys on there, like the admin data on there. And also hi to Dave Morton. Thank you very much for continually reposting this podcast and helping us spread the word as well. Hi to Dr. Migolito Loveless from the USA. My wife and I have been listening to you for the last couple of months. It starts the morning off right. You are energetic and upbeat. Sorry if you heard my phone go. Just got my notifications turned on. You are enthusiastic, he says, and he just loves to start the day in a positive way. Hi to as well Alex Lounsbury from the USA. Left a lovely little comment a couple of days ago on the iTunes comments section of the podcast, and it's just good to know that you like to start the day with some positive news. I do try and always bring you those positive EV stories because, to be honest with you, we are flush with them. There is so much going on, and the podcast could be double the length. If you want to get in touch, please do. Make a comment about any of those things that we are talking about. Yesterday on the community section of the podcast, I was asking for your feedback, and great feedback, by the way, on the subject of charging. So this is for people who drive a pure BEV and, for one reason or another, have been subject to turning up to a charger, a rapid charger, particularly we're talking about rapid chargers, right, and not being able to plug your car in. Is that a good or a bad thing? A ton of feedback today on this. Let me just bring up some of the comments here. Well, it's from a friend of the show, Brian Weatherall. He says, a great show today, Martyn. I must comment on your note about plug-in hybrids on rapid chargers. We're all very quick to blame the driver, but the way I see it, there are always rules for rapid chargers, and some of the car park owners' rules, some of the charge operators' rules. If the car owner is following those rules, then so be it. It's frustrating, it's annoying if you've got to plug in, but that frustration should be aimed at those making the rules, not the car owner. We need clear rules. Rapids should have fixed times to use them, and they shouldn't be measured in hours, otherwise people would plug in and go about their day. I would add that I see rapid chargers, says Brian, in locations where destination chargers would be better, like outside cinemas or shopping centres. They could have 7 kilowatt posts, like 20 of them in a row, for the cost of one rapid. And hi on YouTube to Loanword. Great username. Thank you very much for that. Level 2 charging, he says, ideal for any place you'll park for several hours. You go to the office, shops and home, etc. Put level 1 in. It's nice and cheap where you're parking for days. And yes, it is silly, he says, plugging in a low-capacity hybrid into a fast charger. It's worse if it then prevents someone who actually needs a fast charge to get where they're going in a pure EV. In any case, we'll get this all sorted as millions of charging locations are added in the coming few years. All that's really needed is electricity. We just need more of it. A wonderful set of opinions on there on our YouTube comments, and more to read if you want to go online and see those. Thank you so much for leaving them. You can take part in the show anytime and leave a comment, and I'll try and pass those on. If I forget any, give me a kick and a punch in the face. I often say, I'll mention that, and then I forget. Sorry, brain's like a sieve. Just remind me and we'll put it in. In the meantime, all previous 162 episodes, wowzers, of the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube for the audio, TuneIn, Stitcher, and the blog at evnewsdaily.com. If you subscribe, they are free, by the way, and always will be free in the archive. You get them first and automatically. If you want to catch up on the socials, come and say hi, and just search EV News Daily for that. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.